Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson. Tonight, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and CNN's New York offices all received what appear to be pipe bombs in the mail this morning. That news sparked a massive investigation into the obvious question: who sent these explosives and why? None of the devices exploded or harmed anyone. Details remain sparse, but Fox's Trace Gallagher has been covering this story from the very beginning and joins us with the very latest. Trace?
And Tucker, a law enforcement source tells us the choice of pipe bombs in packages is unusual because there's no easy or obvious method of detonation. But authorities also say that while these pipe bombs were rudimentary, they appear to be functional, and at least one contained projectiles, including shards of glass, to inflict as much damage as possible. The FBI says the packages were mailed in manila envelopes with computer-printed address labels, and they all had 6 forever stamps on them. Those are stamps that can be used anytime, regardless of price changes. And all of the devices had a return address of Florida Congresswoman and former DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Sources also tell us there is strong evidence that these attempted attacks are the work of one group or individual. Over the past 2 days, there have been 10 reports of suspicious packages. 4 have been ruled out. 1 is still being investigated, and 5 have now been confirmed, including to the Clintons, the Obamas, billionaire liberal donor George Soros, former Attorney General Eric Holder, and former CIA Director John Brennan. Brennan's envelope was delivered to CNN. And New York City Police Commissioner James O'Neill says investigators are reviewing security video to see if they can identify the courier who delivered the CNN package. Today, President Trump condemned what he called acts of political violence, but Democratic leaders Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer said, quoting, President Trump's words ring hollow until he reverses his statements that condone acts of violence. Of course, the GOP has blamed Democrats for inciting numerous acts of violence against Republicans. The FBI, by the way, warns more packages could be out there. Tucker.
Trace Gallagher, thanks for that. Well, those pipe bombs, of course, are one of but many examples of attempted and actual political violence we've seen over the past few years. One of the most notable was an attempted massacre at a congressional baseball practice in the summer of 2017. Congressman Steve Scalise of Louisiana was gravely wounded in that shooting. In response to the pipe bomb mailings today, he tweeted this, quote, "These attempted attacks that have been made are beyond criminal. They are acts of pure terror. Violence and terror have no place in our politics or anywhere else in our society." Congressman Steve Scalise joins us tonight. Congressman, thanks very much for coming on. So what was your first reaction when you saw this news today?
Well, Tucker, it's anger. This isn't the way that we should expect America to be turning. I mean, you're seeing more and more of this, and clearly you're seeing it on both sides. We all need to be calling it out. Obviously, we need to find out what happened, and the FBI is in the process of doing it. I feel very confident that our law enforcement officials are ultimately going to find out who did this, and if it's one or multiple people, to bring them to justice and do it as swiftly as possible.
So the president condemned these acts and was immediately rebuked by the Democratic Party for condemning the acts not quite enough. What do you make of that?
I thought that was a mistake on their part to criticize the president. I think it was important that the president did come out with his statement the way he did, strongly. I heard silence a lot of times when Republicans were under attack from Democrat leaders. We all should be calling this out. When a Republican or Democrat is under attack, first of all, we don't even know who did it. We should be trying to find out who did it, but we should be criticizing the act, whether it's a Republican or Democrat. Some people only criticize when it's a Democrat under attack. And the media, by the way, was under attack, too, and there's no place for that either.
How do we de-escalate this? Things seem to be moving in a direction that's ominous. And so what do our leaders need to do, to the extent they have control, to pull us back?
I think the most important thing is to get back to what made this country great. Our founders didn't set up some kind of system where everybody had to think the same way. In fact, they challenged their government, and they wanted a system where individual people can speak their views and even speak out against their government, and they put the First Amendment ultimately in the Constitution to ensure that right. But the difference is we all have, our disagreements. You should never make those personal, and you should never think that violence is a way to settle our political differences. We settle them at the ballot box. We have an election in 13 days. That's where we settle our differences. Violence is never an answer to somebody's political disagreement with somebody else.
It's a wise and interesting point you make. So you're saying that people feel less free to express their opinions now than they have in previous generations, and that's part of the reason things are so volatile?
Well, you know, when somebody tries to use threats or intimidation, it's like the schoolyard bully. You know, if they don't want to confront their own demons, they try to threaten you and scare you away from just living your everyday life. And that's not who we are as Americans. You saw it after September 11th, when our very way of life was under attack by people who had a totally different viewpoint of America and what it stands for. And we came together as a country and we said, we're not going to back down. We're not going to change who we are. And we shouldn't do it here either. But we should be equally vigilant, Republican and Democrat, no matter who is under attack, that it's wrong for whoever did the attack. Let's find out the details. Don't try to deflect blame and try to blame somebody else who had nothing to do with this. Let's actually go after the people who did it. That's what we should do in coming together as Americans. And again, I mean, it's not about philosophy. I'm a conservative. I have liberal friends. I have disagreements with them, but I don't make it personal. And none of us should make it personal. We should want to find out who did it. Let's get the facts. Don't go trying to blame people that had nothing to do with this. Let's all be focused on coming together and finding out who did it and bringing them to justice.
Coming from a man who is very close to being murdered for his political beliefs, your words carry weight on that for sure. Congressman, thank you.
Always great to be with you, Tucker.
The massive caravan of migrants moving northward toward our border is growing exponentially tonight. Now it's more than 14,000 people strong. No nation other than ours is trying to stop them. Why is that? Chris Kobach joins us next. And we're monitoring the Trump rally underway in Wisconsin this evening. We'll take you there immediately live if news occurs, and it may.
But other people just march right in. It will not happen. You watch.
Well, the massive migrant caravan headed for our southern border from Honduras is getting more massive by the day. Reportedly, it has swelled to 14,000 people. Despite the hundreds of millions of dollars that American taxpayers hand out to Central American countries and Mexico, no government in the region seems interested at all in stopping the migrants as they move toward Texas. Once they arrive in Texas, across the Rio Grande River, the group will inevitably be met by left-wing lawyers who specialize in manipulating our dysfunctional immigration system, and they are all but ensured permanent residency in this country if history is any guide. And that, of course, is the main reason so many of them are coming now. One of our major political parties strongly supports all of this. That's not speculation. They say it out loud often. Watch.
We are a country that our strength has always been that we are a tolerant country, that we are welcoming, in particular, of those who have fled harm.
The people of Central America, many are at risk. If they qualify for asylum, we believe there should be a process in which that case can be heard in a fair manner, protecting the individuals.
What's the Democratic Party's message about the caravan?
We are a nation of laws, and the laws that are on the books deal with issues of refugee and asylum status. And our laws require that people be treated with dignity and given that process.
A nation of laws that must be ignored. Disagree with any of that, by the way? Do you think nations need borders in order to be nations? Did you imagine that as an American citizen, you should have some voice in who comes into our country? The cable news geniuses have a message for you. Shut up, racist.
It gets Trump's nativist base very, very excited every day, and they look at these people as less than human. They believe that those folks are less than human, and they believe that they don't deserve asylum. They believe that, you know, the kids in cages was a net benefit for this country.
Donald Trump wants you to know that he hates the same people you hate. If you hate Muslims, if you hate black people, if you hate anyone who lives south of the Rio Grande.
Rick Wilson, for the record, maybe the dumbest person ever to appear on television. Chris Kobach, meanwhile, is a Republican. He's running for governor of Kansas. He does believe in borders, and he joins us tonight. So thanks very much for coming on. I think most people, when thinking about immigration, have thought in terms of barriers. How do you strengthen the border? But this appears to be, this caravan, a perfect example of what's actually happening, which is people who have no right to be here leveraging our legal system against us, something that border walls can't stop.
That's exactly right, Tucker. You know, what I think they're attempting to do is you're right, as you said in the intro, they're going to be met by all kinds of liberal lawyers, and they're going to try to claim asylum. And the thing is, they have no basis whatsoever for claiming asylum. They do not face persecution by the government in their home countries, which is the essence of asylum. But because they, under our laws, at least get a hearing, a credible fear hearing, and we don't have enough detention beds to detain 14,000 people while they get those hearings, many of them probably will be let go with a slip saying, please come back on such and such a day. And they won't come back, or they may try to come back and try to fake it through the hearing. But it is absurd how they are abusing our asylum system, abusing our laws, and they are aided and abetted by the American left.
Well, so it's a little disingenuous because they can't be held, because then it would be you're holding human beings in pens like animals, you racist. They can't be returned into Mexico because they're not Mexican nationals. They're from Central America. And so we don't have a choice under the rules written by the people complaining that we're inhumane to do anything but let them free. And so basically they're subverting our law with the assistance of people who solemn face are telling us we just want to obey the law. I mean, it's like Orwellian.
Yeah, it is Orwellian. And, you know, you mentioned earlier the Democrats and how they're talking about this. Let's just think about this. In the 90s, this is like the third stage of open border psychosis. In the 90s, the Democrats wanted to enforce the law. Bill Clinton signed the Illegal Immigration Reform Act, which is all about enforcement. Then in the 2000s, they were like, okay, now we want amnesty. We're not for enforcing the law. We want amnesty. But now in 2018, they're going beyond that, and they're saying, we want to bring in more illegal aliens. We're not content with the millions here already. We're for bringing people in from outside of the country who have no basis for coming to the United States.
At some point, doesn't this raise questions about what democracy is? I mean, if every poll for 50 years demonstrates that most Americans of both parties want real borders, they want to have a say in who comes and lives here and benefits from our society, and consistently they have no voice at all, then what do you start to wonder about democracy? Maybe it's fake.
You know, it's quite clear that the political left in America is not listening to what the people are saying. And you're absolutely right. The polls constantly show that Americans don't want to be giving taxpayer benefits to illegal aliens. They don't want sanctuary cities. We have been rewarding illegal immigration against the will of the American people for too long. This is a problem we can solve. If you want to stop illegal immigration, stop rewarding illegal immigration. Right. That's one of the most important reasons why I'm running for governor in Kansas. Yeah. But the political left doesn't want to do that.
And if you want to keep people tolerant and pro-immigrant, then let them decide who gets to come here. I mean, what they're doing is making people who are basically for immigration anti-immigration, because it's so unreasonable that reasonable people are getting disgusted. I mean, anyway, Chris Kobach, thank you for being a consistent and clear voice on this issue. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Immigration, of course, was one of the decisive issues, maybe the decisive issue in the last presidential election. What does the caravan mean, if anything, for the 2018 midterms 13 days from now? Dana Perino hosts the Daily Briefing. She served as press secretary for President George W. Bush. She's seen this topic emerge and evolve, and she thinks deeply about all this stuff all the time, and she joins us now. So does this, Dana, I mean, I can't exactly tell where this is going, or if maybe Republicans are overstating its effect or understating it. I mean, what effect is this going to have, do you think?
Well, it's possible that Republicans are overstating this issue and understating health care. But the truth, that could also be said for Democrats, that they're overstating health care and underreporting on immigration. Look, I think if you just look at the Senate, the red state Democrats that are running for re-election, this is not good news for them. Claire McCaskill and Joe Donnelly in particular, Missouri and Indiana. These are states that President Trump won by over 20 points. Immigration was one of their #1 issues for those voters. So this issue being talked about in the last 2 weeks before the midterm election, which is very close anyway, that's probably not good news for them. Conventional wisdom in Washington, D.C. would say that it's not good for Republicans to talk about immigration in the way that you and Chris Kobach were just talking about. However, look at some of the purple states. Dean Heller in Nevada, the incumbent there, the most vulnerable Senate Republican running for re-election, he has opened up a 6-point lead in Nevada. MarthaMacCallum in Arizona now has a lead over her opponent there. So the Democrats really want to focus on and talk about health care. And they could be right. On election night, that could be the main reason that people come out to vote. But this immigration issue with all of these visuals, it's not like it isn't happening. Getting the word out, Republicans getting the word out, could have a difference in some of these coin flip districts as well.
I've always thought that Republicans lied to themselves with the popularity of universal health care. People actually want their health care taken care of, whether they should or not. But if you're taking that position, which is the Democratic position, how do you square that with your immigration views? Letting in tens of millions of more people who also get that health care, doesn't that dilute the promise of the government? I mean, like, how can you pay for that?
Well, they don't. That's not of their concern. That is something that Republicans have to worry about later on, and then they try to fix it, and then they're the mean ones that have to deal with it. I was also thinking of it in another way, because you talked about reasonable people on immigration. I'd like to think that, you know, most people say she's probably one of them. I have a real soft spot for refugees, the refugees who are being persecuted by their governments, hounded by their governments, basically treated terribly, sometimes kidnapped, sometimes targeted for murder for their political beliefs. That is not what's happening here.
I know.
The best way to deal with economic migrants is to actually practice capitalism in those countries. That is what's made this country strong. I'm for helping them in that way, but I feel like Democrats are missing the picture. I would like to have more refugees, actual refugees, be allowed into this country. But if you allow economic migrants into the country and they take up those spaces, you're actually hurting the very ideals that our country was founded on.
This level of lying is making us all cynical, including me. I'm trying to fight it, but it's having that.
You're never cynical.
I'm trying. Dana, it's great to see you, and thank you for your measured and thoughtful analysis, as always.
See you soon.
Several Russia investigations have failed so far to prove that Trump got elected because of Putin. But the Democrats are promising to launch another investigation if they retake Congress. Alan Dershowitz does not think that's a particularly good plan. He's here next to explain why. We're also monitoring the president's rally in Wisconsin for news. There may be some. If there is, we'll bring it to you immediately. Here's what the president just said about today's bomb scares across the country. Watch.
Of political violence are an attack on our democracy itself. No nation can succeed that tolerates violence or the threat of violence as a method of political intimidation, coercion, or control. We all know that. Such conduct must be fiercely opposed and firmly prosecuted. We want all sides to come together in peace and harmony. We can do it. We can do it.
After 2 full years and several separate investigations have so far failed to prove that Russia, quote, hacked our election, Democrats are pledging still another Russia probe if they retake the House of Representatives. But that's not their only goal. The vast majority of Democratic voters, according to opinion polling, say they want the Democrats to impeach the president if they retake the Congress. Alan Dershowitz is an emeritus professor at Harvard Law School and the author of The Case Against Impeaching Trump, and he joins us tonight. Professor, do you think that we need another Russia probe?
No, I don't think we do. I think we'll learn a lot from the report that Mueller will release. If we did need a probe, it should be a nonpartisan 9/11 type objective probe. The last thing we need is a partisan probe whose purpose it is to demonize the other party and to try to gain partisan advantage. That's not what the American public needs, and I think the Democrats will shoot themselves in the foot if they fritter away their power as a check and balance if they do regain the House by looking to the past instead of looking to the future.
So that kind of is the question, actually. Do you get partisan advantage even by talking about Russia? Well, presumably, if you're a Democrat, there are lots of things you disagree with that Trump believes. Why not argue about those? Why still Russia?
It's ridiculous, I think, and I do think that in the end they would get short-term partisan advantage, but in the end I think the long-term disadvantages would be obvious. We saw that happen when Bill Clinton was impeached. It turned very negative on the Republicans, and I think even those who participated in the impeachment now regret that. And I think that the Democrats should learn the lesson. If they are fortunate enough to regain the House, they should use that as a way of checking and balancing and exercising their constitutional authority, trying to work with the Republicans and come up with some compromise programs that won't satisfy anybody 100%, but that's the nature of a divided government. You come up with compromises. Think back to the days, when Ted Kennedy would work so closely with McCain and others. I think we need to see that happening again. And if the Democrats regain control and they're smart, they will try to reach out to moderate Republicans and try to come up with some programs that help the American public rather than just achieve short-term partisan results.
The impeachment talk strikes me as strange. I mean, you're the constitutional scholar here, obviously, but my understanding is you need 3/4 of the Senate to vote for conviction in order to remove a president with impeachment. That's not going to happen. So given that it's not going to happen, why are they considering it?
Well, for the same reason that they considered it with Bill Clinton. The House could conceivably get a majority to impeach. It's very easy to impeach. It's not easy to impeach constitutionally, but the House can act unconstitutionally. Maxine Waters has already said the criteria for impeachment is anything the House wants. She wants to impeach not only President Trump, but Vice President Pence as well. It would just be a show trial, and they might get enough votes. I don't think they will. I think there'd be enough sensible Democrats to understand that this would not be a positive thing for the Democratic Party, certainly leading up to 2020. And as soon as the midterms are over, 2020 begins. And I think it would be a way of frittering away the advantage the Democrats have gotten by taking over the House. It also, even the talk of it now, hurts their chances of winning the House. I don't think Americans want to vote for an impeachment. I don't think they want to vote for more investigations of Russia. I think they want to vote for candidates who will move the country forward.
And you see it in the polling even. The Democrats who are doing unexpectedly well are talking about health insurance, health care questions, actual economic matters. This is an obvious nonpartisan point that you're making. I'm agreeing with you. Why is it not obvious to Democratic leaders?
Well, I think it is obvious to some Democratic leaders. The problem is the leaders today don't have control over the party because the successes have come from young radicals who are winning small elections in obscure places that don't represent what Americans really think. I think most Americans are centrists, and the movement to the left of the Democratic Party does not represent the mainstream of the Democratic Party. And I would hope the leaders would recognize that. The same thing is true of Republicans. The extreme right wing, which is winning in a few places, doesn't represent the core of the Republican Party. I think the Americans benefit when both parties move to the middle, when there are great debates between conservatives and liberals. That's where the debate should happen, instead of screaming matches between the radicals on the left and the radicals on the right. That's not the America that made us great.
Professor Alan Dershowitz, great to see you tonight. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, before the recent reemergence of identity politics in this country, candidates were typically held to account if they were, say, caught taking bribes or burning flags. Not so much anymore. Two prominent Democrats, both accused of those things, and they're still polling at the same level or better than they were previously. That's because identity politics has shifted the burden for politicians. Rather than campaigning on results and substance and issues and ideas, they simply make appeals to what you look like, who your ancestors were. That's a topic that's addressed in great detail in a new book called Ship of Fools, available for purchase on tuckercarlson.com. Well, the creepy porn lawyer certainly has lived a glamorous life, it turns out. During the few waking moments he hasn't spent on cable television, he has raced cars with a Saudi prince. He's flown private to visit five-star hotels in the French Riviera. He once owned a $7 million home in Southern California. It's good being the creepy porn lawyer, but with a first name like Creepy, it's no surprise that Mr. Porn Lawyer financed that lifestyle in part by simply refusing to pay the money he owed other people. According to an extensive and fascinating report in the Daily Beast, CPL and his businesses have millions of dollars in unpaid state and federal taxes. Earlier this year, Creepy Porn Lawyer's law firm was ordered to pay $10 million to a former partner whom he apparently stiffed on profits from the firm. The firm did not pay up, so today the Creepy Porn Lawyer was hit with a personal judgment of $4.8 million. Not even the Creepy Porn Lawyer's landlords are getting a cut of that, though. In a court in Santa Ana, California evicted the law firm from its offices for simply skipping 4 months of rent. Nobody from the firm even bothered to show up at the hearing. Maybe that would have been different if the hearing had been held inside a CNN news studio. Well, rising stars in the Democratic Party have been the subject of seemingly endless fawning media coverage. When we say fawning, we mean fawning, treacly. Now, two candidates running in competitive races in Florida and in Georgia are consumed with pretty serious scandals. That's something you probably didn't read about in the latest Gushing magazine profile of them. We'll bring you up to date anyway. Consider first the case of Andrew Gillum. He's the socialist Democrat running for governor of Florida. He was the mayor of Tallahassee. He was confronted about free gifts he received while he was mayor during a debate last night in Florida. Watch this.
You went to a Broadway show with an undercover FBI agent. You went to Costa Rica with these same lobbyists. And guess what happened? The lobbyists that wined and dined Andrew, they got a $2 million grant.
My wife and I take vacations, and we pay for our own vacations. I didn't get anything in life for free.
Did you pay for Hamilton?
Then he ought to check himself.
Well, Andrew,
Why?
did you pay for the
You
trip?
had your time, I will take mine.
Because you won't answer the question.
I will take mine.
Right. The question is, did you pay for the Hamilton ticket, or did the undercover FBI agent pay for the Hamilton ticket? Did you pay to stay in the villa in Costa Rica? Where are the receipts? You have not proven that you paid for anything, and that's the problem.
So here's the direct answer. I don't take free trips from anybody. I'm a hardworking person. I know that may not fit your description of what you think people like me do, but I worked hard for everything that I've gotten.
Your description of what people like me do. Okay. But what about the undercover FBI agent? And did he give you free tickets to Hamilton, or didn't he? Well, Gillum explained that asking questions about FBI bribery investigations is, needless to say, you know the answer, racism. Many Florida voters seem to agree with that. They're at least unbothered by the corruption allegations. Gillum leads tonight by nearly 6 points in the Real Clear Politics polling averages. Meanwhile, in Georgia, in the governor's race there, another Democratic all-star, Stacey Abrams, admits to burning the U.S. flag, the flag of the state of Georgia. Watch.
26 years ago, as a college freshman, I, along with many other Georgians, including the governor of Georgia, were deeply disturbed by the racial divisiveness that was embedded in the state flag with that Confederate symbol. I took an action of peaceful protest.
So you don't like the flag, just burn it. Well, in the current era of political harassment, it should be no surprise that Democrats like Abrams are unashamed of their radical past. She openly admits she once opposed, among other things, free markets. Here she is.
We can educate bold and ambitious children, but our fundamental responsibility is to take care of the least of these, especially when the least of these are working families who only want a little bit of access to health care. And I am sick and tired of hearing about the free market being the solution to this problem.
Well, there was a time, like about 25 minutes ago, that burning flags and attacking markets would be enough to sink a candidate in Georgia, but not this year. 2 years of anti-Trump fever on the left has encouraged increasing radicalism in the candidates, and that's why Abrams seems okay even with illegal immigrant voters. Watch this.
Blue wave is African American.
Yeah!
It's white, it's Latino, it's Asian Pacific Islander. It is law enforcement.
Yes!
It is veterans.
Yes!
It is made up of those who've been told that they are not worthy of being here.
Yes!
It is comprised of those who are documented and undocumented.
So the undocumented are now participating in our elections. Federal crime, whatever. Lisa Booth is a senior fellow at Independent Women's Voice, and she joins us tonight. Lisa,
Hi,
thanks a lot
Tucker.
for coming on. So the Gillum race seems interesting, especially interesting because there's this addition of apparently an FBI corruption investigation into the middle of it. What is that exactly?
Well, there's actually two investigations. So there's a state investigation into some trips that Andrew Gillum took, and then there's also this FBI investigation. But the reason why all of this has come into the fold in the media as of late is there's this document dump about 150 pages basically showing that Andrew Gillum has been lying about accepting a Broadway ticket to Hamilton, which he had accepted from an undercover FBI agent. And that's what these documents demonstrate, is that he did knowingly take this ticket from a guy named Mike Miller, who was the undercover agent, who he thought was, a business guy who was looking to do a deal with his city when he was mayor. So that's what we know now. And then we also...
Wait, I just want to point out, just to warn our viewers, that Andrew Gillum has explained it's racist to bring that up.
Well, right. And if you would look at our very, storied history in the country of people of all different races coming under fire in investigations for corruption, corruption knows no, race here. So I think this is sort of an excuse he's trying to use. And look, with the big problem with the FBI investigation is he's saying that he's not a target, but we honestly don't really know that. And if you look at one of his close friends, this longtime lobbyist, Corey Adams, he is at the center of the FBI investigation, and so is one of his businesses, or a couple of his businesses, and one of them, which Gillum was on the city commission that voted to approve the deal.
So one of the reasons that we're also upset here in Washington about Russia hacking our election is that foreign nationals aren't supposed to be influencing our political process, period. It's actually against the law at a federal level. Stacey Abrams is saying she wants undocumented as part of this process. Has she explained what she meant? Does anyone care?
Well, the problem is, look, Democrats keep trying to say that, they're not the party of open borders, but all you have to do is go back to, a speech that was released with WikiLeaks with Hillary Clinton in 2013 talking about her desire for open borders. You have people like Keith Ellison walking around with shirts saying that he supports open borders. So it would not be a surprise that, this is sort of the, would not be a surprise that Stacey Abrams would be trying to say something like this.
Yeah, it's just, there's a difference between saying open the borders and then saying that people here legally should be playing a role in our political process. That's reserved for citizens, I thought.
It is, Tucker, but also remember the fact that Hillary Clinton gave a voice to undocumented illegal immigrants during the DNC convention. So, does it really surprise you that much?
No, it doesn't at all. And that's where this has always been going. Of course, you're absolutely right. But it's still surprising. Anyway, Lisa Booth, thank you for those updates. We appreciate them every time.
Thanks, Tucker.
Well, most of the news is bad news, as you know. That's the first thing we thought when we saw the newspaper this morning. That's why we're so grateful to have Mike Rowe here, because he says we are overlooking a lot of good news, and he's here to talk about what that news is, and that's next. Plus, we're monitoring the Trump rally in the state of Wisconsin. We'll take you there live if news occurs, good or bad. Stay tuned. Well, if you spent the day marinating in news as we do, you probably concluded that it's over. The economy is tanking, the country is disintegrating, the sky is falling. But we know that's not true. And so there's one man we could think of to remind us of the upside of America, a man who knows his country very well, former Dirty Jobs host Mike Rowe, and he joins us tonight. Mike, we sent out a distress call to you this morning. We broke the glass in case of emergency, literally on our call. We got to get Mike Rowe to remind us what's so great about this country we share.
Dogs and cats living together. What's going to become of us? Your producer's hysterical. Kelly sent me the email. She was like, we're just, do you have any good news going on in your life? I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yes,
she said, just
I knew you
anything.
would.
Like, what do you got?
Exactly.
And I'm like, well, I got this show called Returning the Favor that has absolutely steeped me in bloody do-gooderism for the last year and a half. I spend my weeks now, I'm not kidding you, I know you know this, but I fly all around the country meeting people who are slightly better than you and me, figuring out what makes them tick, giving them a surprise to allow them to continue doing whatever altruistic thing they've been doing that makes me feel small and them look huge. And they cry and we laugh. And then I go to the next place. And it's the feel-good hit of the summer. It's got 300 million views. And it's warped me so badly and turned me into such a absurd Pollyanna that I literally have to come home and put on cable news in order to feel regular again. It's completely backwards for me.
So that just sounds like the greatest job ever and the greatest show ever. So what have you learned about Americans in doing it?
Same thing I learned on Dirty Jobs. Look, fundamentally, we're still united more than we're divided. You're not going to find it in your news feed, and you're not going to find it on cable, unfortunately. Yeah. But work, the work that we do, the stuff we do for money, Dirty Jobs is still on. It's been on 15 years. Never once do you hear the words Republican, Democrat, ISIS, riot. You might hear hurricane if we're down doing a cleanup or something, but nobody talks about any of that stuff in real life. And on Returning the Favor, it's the same thing. Oh, my God, that's my baby picture. That's so weird. We essentially highlight decency the same way we used to highlight work. It was really just an experiment. We wanted to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the country still was full of people who woke up and went out to make their community a better place. And now my news feed, I'm not kidding, it is literally overrun with people saying, you got to meet my brother, my uncle, my cousin, my sister, my mom. You got to meet my neighbor. Wait do you see what they do? So, look, for what it's worth, we're going to be okay. And if we had social media back in the day, I mean, pick your favorite century. If we were reporting on the state of things today, the way they existed once upon a time, it'd be enough to depress a hyena. Are you kidding me? We're living, this is the absolute best time to be alive, ever. Any food you want can be delivered to your door. You can fly across the country in a steel tube. Any song you want, all the information in the world is right here. It's accessible. It's not as bad as you think.
So the one question I have, and the one worry that I have, is related to it. I've always loved about America that Americans are kind to strangers. Are they still?
Yeah. Yeah, they are. But it's not news. It's not headline news. You know, man holds door for women weighed down with bags. No. There's, you know, look, manners is maybe back on its heels a little bit anymore. I don't know why people don't stand anymore when women walk in the room, but these are little things. Fundamentally, I don't think, I think we're the same basic species we've always been. Look, just 20 minutes ago, I narrated the foreword to my mom's book. My mom, at 80 years of age, has written a book about optimism. And it's literally flying off the shelves. I'm so proud of her because 2 weeks ago on Barnes & Noble, Fear, Bob Woodward's book, was #1. She actually eclipsed it for a couple of hours. For a couple of hours, hope trumped fear.
I know that feeling. Mike Rowe, you have cheered us up, as always, as we knew you would, and we're grateful for it. Whenever you get bored, please come back on, because we need it. Thank you.
I'm going to bring my mother next time, and you're going to love her. I promise.
Done. Well, I can't wait. Thanks, man. See ya. And now back to the rest of the news. Breaking news on those pipe bombs mailed across the country. We'll bring you the latest when we return. Packages that apparently contained pipe bombs were delivered to the Clintons and the Obamas this morning. A separate package was sent to CNN. The Federalist Molly Hemingway has been following the story since the beginning, and she joins us tonight. So, Molly, we've been steeped in coverage of this story, and a lot of us are losing track of what we know and what we don't know. So please bring us up to speed on that.
Well, actually, I think most of us don't really have any information at all. We know that there were packages that were sent to people, and we know that they had devices that appeared to look like bombs, and that's about all we know.
Right.
And so it's been interesting that there's been so much discussion of what this means and the significance and the motivation, and we actually don't have any information about that at all, except knowing who they were sent to thus far.
So the implication was, on the other channels I was watching this afternoon, that the president sent these.
Yeah.
But we don't know that, is what you're saying.
Yeah, there's been a lot of blame being placed literally on President Trump, and with no reason, literally no reason. We do not know who did this, if it was an individual or group of individuals. We don't know their political motivations, other than that their targets were these Democrats, but we don't know, what the meaning was behind the targeting of these people. We don't even know if it was an American citizen or someone, a rogue actor from a different country. So we need to find out who was involved, and if it was an individual or if it was a group of individuals, and what they were trying to accomplish. And that would be good to do before we place blame on
it. It would seem that way, because here's what we know. The packages were threatening. Whether they posed actual threats or not, we're not sure. But they were certainly
They were made to appear as bombs
if
they were not
sent
actual.
to Democrats exclusively, as of this point, it seems that way. But to assign blame when we don't know who's to blame is corrosive, is it not?
I actually think it's wrong always to assign blame for people are responsible for their own actions, and even if other people have done things that they find insightful, people are responsible for their own actions. There's no consistency on this, though. A couple weeks ago, when Ricin was sent to the Pentagon and the White House, I don't think CNN said we did it. We did this because we attacked Trump all day, every day, and they shouldn't have, because they weren't responsible.
They didn't
the individual who did it was responsible.
Thank you for reminding us. Steve Scalise said that at the beginning of the show. It's nice to be reminded. Molly, thank you.
Thanks.
We've got a Fox News alert for you. A postal facility in South Los Angeles has been evacuated tonight. Workers discovered a suspicious package addressed to Congresswoman Maxine Waters. KTTV Fox Los Angeles Bill Melgwin joins us from outside that complex. Bill, what do you know?
Yeah, Tucker, good evening. What we know is very limited so far, but what I can tell you is that earlier this afternoon, our newsroom got some phone calls from employees here at this postal facility telling us they were being evacuated because of a suspicious package that was found here that was addressed to Maxine Waters. Now, let me give you a live look at the scene right here. LAPD's bomb squad is on scene right here. We understand they have the robot out. And from people watching our chopper camera, I understand some of the bomb technicians have gone inside to take x-rays of this device, which is still inside of the building. Now, we've been talking to some of these employees leaving the facility. Some of them are very confused about what's going on here. Some of them are telling us they weren't evacuated, others telling us they were. But they all know that this package did, in fact, have Maxine Waters' name on it. One telling us that she believes that the package had very similar markings and ID stuff on it, just like the other packages that were found throughout the day. Now, this would be the second package found today addressed to Maxine Waters. This would be, if it's confirmed that it's some sort of explosive device, this would be, I believe, the 7th bomb. So right now, LAPD bomb techs on scene here investigating, again, a second package addressed to Maxine Waters here in South LA. We'll send it back to you guys.
Billy, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Our hour is over. We'll be back tomorrow at 8. We are the show that's a sworn enemy of lying, pomposity, smugness, and groupthink. Good night from Washington.